from the Jazz Rabbi, that's me, Rabbi Richard Nickel, and greetings from all the cool people at Congregation Ruach Israel here in Needham, Massachusetts. Well, I'd like to talk with you about a very important subject, but let me pose it as a question. Do you find yourself often or even endlessly judging other people? You're nice to them on the outside, but in your inner world, in your mind and in your heart, do you find yourself constantly criticizing and evaluating other people? Well, you know as well as I do that that's not a happy way to live, and so I've got some ancient wisdom for you today, which I think can help us reorient our thinking and thereby become people who are just better human beings, better Jews, and more able to approach life joyfully. Our wisdom today comes from the very famous Rabbi Hillel, who lived a few years before Jesus in the first century in Israel. And Rabbi Hillel, who was known as an extremely compassionate person, but also as a very realistic observer of the human condition, he had this to say. I'll read this to you. This is from a very famous part of the Jewish corpus of Jewish literature called Pirkei Avot. It's part of the Talmud, and I'll read it in Hebrew and I'll translate. Va'al ta'amin ba'amsik ad yom mutacha. Don't be too confident about yourself until the day you die. Va'al tadin et hachaver ad tegi'ah lemukomo. And don't judge your friend, your chaver, until you have stood in his place. What is Rabbi Hillel getting at here? Well, first of all, he reminds us that we shouldn't be too confident about our own inherent goodness. The fact of the matter is, if we were to push the right combination of buttons in any of us, we could be surprised at how we might act. And we all know that about ourselves, but it's important to be consciously aware of that fact. And it's relevant to our subject today. And then he goes on to say, and don't judge your chaver, your friend, until you have walked in his shoes. In other words, we don't really understand the things that have gone into the life of another person, the temptations they face, the kind of conditions they may have grown up in, the people who've influenced them, their own weaknesses, some of which can be genetic, some of which can be personality or even a function of their own bad choices. But we're not to judge them unless we've walked in their shoes, unless we can say that we really understand where they're coming from because we have shared in some of their experience. Rabbi Hillel then gives us wisdom to know how to deal with this tendency that you may have, some of us may have, all of us, I think, have at different times in our lives, to just judge the world and judge the people in our lives very harshly. Now, Rabbi Yeshua, Jesus, gives us some additional wisdom that relates to the subject. And I'll read his words in Hebrew, although he probably spoke to the crowds back in ancient Israel in a related language called Aramaic, a very similar language. At least by hearing it in Hebrew, you'll get a sense of how it probably was heard by his earliest followers. So he said this, Al tishpatu lema'an asher lo tishpatu. Do not judge lest you yourselves be judged. Ki b'mishpat asher atem shoftim tishafetu. That is, because the way you judge other people, the standard by which you judge them, the level of harshness and intensity and that you judge them, you yourself will be judged by that standard. God will see to it. And he goes on to say this, Uvimidah asher atem modidim, and by again the standard, the quality by which you judge them, you yourself will be judged. That is, yemad lachem, you yourself will be judged. Now here, Yeshua takes it to even a higher level because he's saying that God one day is going to call all of us to account. I realize it's not a terribly popular idea in the modern world, but we believe it very strongly, and actually there are tremendous values to understanding this in terms of building a good society. Fact of the matter is, one day we're all going to stand before Him. And God is going to, in part, judge us, not only by the specific things we've done or haven't done, but He's going to judge us in part by the standard by which we judged our fellow human being while on this earth. So therefore, judging people has consequences which go far beyond the immediate circumstances and our immediate internal disposition. One day we're all going to stand before God. And so, in conclusion, we can take some comfort, some encouragement, and a touch of warning from the teachings of Rabbi Hillel and Yeshua, and that is that we're not to judge. We're not to judge unless we are able to say we have walked in another's shoes. And beyond that, the standard by which we judge others will be applied to us, because one day, again, all of us are going to have to give an account to God for what we have done during these few short years of our sojourn on planet Earth. Well, it's time for me to get back to the boys and play a little jazz, because jazz is life. All of life is an improvised solo. And so, from all the folks at Congregation Ruach Israel, may you have a terrific week, and come visit our website. We'd love to get to know you and for you to get to know us better too.